the human princess, entered the war zone alone. From the comfort of the space palace, she could see the planet below, its surface scarred by fire and smoke, crisscrossed with laser fire and the flicker of explosions. Ships moved in precise formations above the planet, but many of them were struggling against the alien attackers. The Xylar, a race known for their advanced weapons and towering war machines, had invaded the human colony there. Alara's heart ached as she watched the destruction. She had trained in diplomacy and administration her whole life, but seeing humans trapped, struggling to survive, made her blood boil with something deeper than fear. Her advisors had gathered around her, their faces tight with worry. "Your Highness," one of them said, bowing slightly, "it is not safe to enter the war zone. We have fleets, soldiers, and strategy teams in place. You must stay here and provide guidance." Alara turned to face them, her eyes blazing. "Guidance?" she repeated, her voice calm but firm. "I see children hiding in shelters, men and women risking their lives on the battlefield, and you tell me to stay here? No, I cannot stand aside while humans are dying because we were too careful to act." Another advisor, an older man with gray streaks in his hair, shook his head. "You are a princess, Alara. Your duty is to lead, not fight. The risks are—" "Risk," Alara cut him off. "Do you think they are not already risking everything? Do you think our soldiers do not face danger every moment? I will not sit in luxury while humans suffer. If our people are to survive, they need more than strategy. They need hope. And sometimes, hope is a person willing to stand where others cannot." The room fell silent. No one argued further. Alara's voice, calm yet filled with fire, carried weight. She had always been determined, but this was beyond politics. She had decided. Over the next hours, she studied the battle reports, memorized the terrain of the planet, and learned everything about the Xylar's movements that she could. Her training in leadership, quick thinking, and human intuition became her most powerful tools. By the time she was ready, the decision was made. Alara would enter the war zone alone. The shuttle she would use was small and fast, built for stealth rather than combat. Engineers tried to warn her about the dangers of traveling unescorted. They gave her the best armor they could, an exosuit designed to amplify her strength and protect her from most weapons. But Alara did not rely on machines alone. She relied on humans, the ability to think, to adapt, to surprise the enemy in ways no machine could anticipate. When the shuttle lifted off, leaving the safety of the palace orbit, Alara felt her heart race. The stars stretched endlessly around her, and the planet below was alive with chaos. She took a deep breath, feeling a mix of fear and exhilaration. She was alone, but she was human, and humans had a stubbornness that even the Xylar had not accounted for. The descent through the atmosphere was turbulent. Fires lit the sky like golden veins, and the sound of distant explosions rattled the shuttle. Alara gripped the controls with steady hands, guiding the ship toward a safer landing zone. Below her, she could see soldiers hiding in trenches and ruins, trying to regroup. Her mind raced, calculating possibilities. She did not plan to simply arrive and fight. She planned to inspire, to show that humans could hold their ground even against a superior enemy. Landing was rough, but the exosuit absorbed much of the shock. Alara stepped out into the smoky battlefield, her suit's sensors scanning for threats. The ground shook as alien war machines moved closer, their shadows long and terrifying in the firelight. Yet Alara's stride was steady. Fear was there, but it did not control her. She could see the soldiers first, hiding behind damaged walls and rubble. Many of them paused, staring at her. A princess in full armor standing alone was not something they expected. Their eyes widened, hope flickering where there had been despair. Alara raised her hand and spoke, her voice clear over the hum of battle. "Stand up, fight. Do not let fear take you." Her words were simple, but her presence was powerful. Humans around her felt strength they had forgotten they possessed. One by one, they began to rise, gathering their weapons, inspired by her courage. She moved carefully among them, analyzing the enemy positions. The Xylar machines were fast but predictable in their patterns. Humans had intuition, creativity, and determination, qualities that no amount of alien technology could fully counter. Alara guided small groups, showing them how to use the terrain, set traps, and strike where the enemy would not expect. They worked together, humans thinking and reacting in ways machines could not anticipate. Hours passed. The battle raged, but with each small victory, the human soldiers grew more confident. Alara herself faced danger directly, ducking under laser fire, using the exosuit to leap over debris and reach trapped soldiers. She pulled civilians from burning buildings, rerouted ammunition, and even disabled one Xylar scout drone by improvising a trap with nothing but scraps of metal and her ingenuity. Every action sent a message. Humans were resourceful, fearless, and unpredictable. By nightfall, the battlefield was quieter. Fires still burned, but the humans had held key positions, forcing the Xylar to withdraw temporarily. Alara stood on a ruined wall, looking out at the darkened battlefield. She was exhausted but exhilarated. She had faced the enemy alone, but she had not truly been alone. Humans had fought beside her, inspired by her courage and quick thinking. Her suit displayed incoming messages from Earth, urgent and concerned. "Princess Alara, you are," but she ignored them for the moment. She needed to assess the battlefield, plan for the next day, and ensure that the humans she had inspired would survive the coming hours. She could already see small groups of soldiers whispering to each other, planning strategies, moving with a newfound determination. Alara allowed herself a brief smile. She was only one human, but one human could change everything. She had proven it today, and she would continue to prove it, not with reckless heroism, but with cleverness, courage, and the stubbornness that defined humanity. As the night deepened, she walked among the soldiers, checking on the wounded, sharing words of encouragement, and quietly planning her next moves. She knew the Xylar would return stronger and more determined, but she also knew that humans could adapt, think, and fight in ways the aliens could not. Above all, she knew one thing: fear could not rule them. Doubt could not stop them. And a single human, if brave and clever enough, could stand against even the most terrifying odds. In the darkness, under the light of distant fires, Princess Alara of Earth smiled, ready for whatever the next day would bring. The Warzone was vast, dangerous, and filled with unknowns, but humans, she realized, were even greater than the unknowns they faced. The next morning, the battlefield seemed almost peaceful compared to the chaos of the night before. Smoke still rose in thin columns, and the ground was littered with debris, but the human soldiers moved with a purpose now, their morale stronger than it had been before. Princess Alara walked among them, her exosuit clanking lightly with each step, her eyes scanning for threats and opportunities. She paused near a small group of soldiers who were trying to repair a damaged communications relay. One of the men looked up, his face smeared with soot and sweat. "Princess, we didn't think we'd survive the night," he admitted, voice trembling with relief. Alara smiled gently. "You did more than survive," she said. "You stood, you fought. That is what matters." Humans do not surrender because they are weak. Humans survive because they refuse to give up. The soldiers straightened, pride replacing exhaustion. Alara's words, simple as they were, carried weight. Humans needed more than weapons, they needed hope. And her presence reminded them that even one determined person could make a difference. She moved toward the ridge overlooking the battlefield. From there, she could see the Xylar forces regrouping. Their war machines were massive, with armor that gleamed even in the smoke-filled morning light. They were clearly preparing to strike again, more organized and deadly than before. Alara's mind raced. She knew she could not face them head-on. Even with her exosuit, one human could not destroy an entire army. But humans had something the Xylar could not predict: imagination, adaptability, and teamwork. She gathered the soldiers in a small, makeshift camp behind the ridge. Using maps scavenged from abandoned military outposts, she pointed to weak points in the enemy's formation, showing how humans could use their speed, agility, and knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. "Those machines are strong," she said, "but they move slowly. They are predictable. They do not expect humans to fight in ways that are clever and unexpected. If we work together, if we think we can slow them down, we can make them hesitate, and hesitation is all we need." The soldiers nodded, absorbing her strategy. She then led them to set up traps using debris, explosives, and even simple techniques like creating false pathways to lure the enemy into ambushes. Alara's mind worked quickly, thinking through each scenario, predicting how the Xylar would respond, and devising countermeasures. Every move she suggested was rooted in human intelligence, adaptability, and courage. By mid-morning, the first wave of Xylar scouts approached. Massive machines rolled forward, their weapons scanning for targets. Alara crouched behind a shattered wall with a squad of soldiers, watching carefully. As the enemy advanced, she gave clear, calm orders. Humans darted from cover to cover, drawing the scouts into traps and using the terrain to their advantage. One machine fell into a pit she had instructed the soldiers to dig overnight. Another was disabled when a group of humans pulled down a damaged support beam onto it. Alara herself moved among the battle, acting as both leader and fighter. Her exosuit allowed her to jump great distances, dodge enemy fire, and carry injured soldiers to safety. Each action she took was deliberate, calculated, and designed to inspire. The humans around her began to trust their instincts again, fighting not just with weapons but with courage and creativity. As the battle continued, Alara noticed a group of Xylar machines advancing toward a civilian shelter at the edge of the city. Without hesitation, she sprinted toward them, signaling the soldiers to follow. Using a combination of explosives and clever misdirection, she managed to draw the enemy away from the shelter. Civilians emerged, their faces filled with gratitude and relief. Seeing them safe reinforced her determination. Every human life mattered, and humans had the power to protect one another, even against overwhelming odds. After the engagement, Alara gathered the soldiers again. "Today we fought not because we were strong," she said, her voice carrying over the battlefield, "but because we were smart, we were brave, and we refused to give up. Remember this. The Xylar may have machines, but we have something far greater. Humans will always find a way." The soldiers cheered, their spirits lifted higher than they had been in weeks. Alara's presence had done more than organize them. It had given them courage, a belief in themselves, and a renewed sense of purpose. But even as they celebrated, Alara did not relax. She knew the Xylar would not stop. They were calculating, relentless, and capable of adjusting to human tactics if given time. She studied the enemy formations with her suit's sensors, noting their movements and patterns. She began to understand their command structure and noticed small signs of hesitation. The Xylar did not expect humans to take the initiative, to fight in ways that were unpredictable. That hesitation could be exploited. By evening, Alara had developed a bold plan. She would lead a small team of soldiers to infiltrate a critical supply depot that the Xylar relied on. Cutting off these supplies would force the enemy to slow down, giving the humans more time to fortify their positions and prepare for the next attack. It was dangerous, but she trusted human ingenuity and teamwork. As night fell, Alara and her team moved silently through the ruins of the city. Shadows stretched across broken streets, and distant explosions reminded them that the enemy was never far. They approached the depot, a massive structure guarded by several Xylar machines. Alara studied the guards, noting their patrol patterns and weaknesses. She signaled to the team, and they moved with precision, each human using their creativity to avoid detection. Alara led the way, disabling security systems with tools the Xylar had not designed for humans to use. One by one, the soldiers followed her example, adapting to situations in ways that no machine could anticipate. Finally, they reached the central supply chamber. Explosives were carefully placed, designed not to destroy everything but to cut off critical energy sources, disabling the machines without unnecessary destruction. When the charges detonated, a low hum spread through the depot as power systems failed. The Xylar machines outside began to falter, their weapons disabled. Alara and her team retreated, moving swiftly back to the human lines. Soldiers cheered as they saw the impact of their actions. The humans had achieved what no one thought possible. They had struck a meaningful blow against a technologically superior enemy using only their courage, brains, and teamwork. Alara stood on a ridge, looking out over the battlefield. She was tired, every muscle aching, but her heart swelled with pride. Humans had shown that even in the darkest hours, they could adapt, fight, and win. One human, or even a small group, could make a difference if they believed in themselves. That belief, she realized, was humanity's greatest weapon. The following days passed in a blur of skirmishes, clever tactics, and moments of intense bravery. Alara continued to lead from the front, her presence a constant reminder that humans would not yield. Soldiers learned to anticipate enemy movements. Civilians contributed in small but crucial ways, and together they began to turn the tide. Every day, Alara reinforced the lesson that humans, though physically weaker than some alien species, were unstoppable when they used their minds, hearts, and courage. One evening, after a particularly fierce engagement, Alara sat with a group of young soldiers near a small fire. They were tired, hungry, but smiling. "Princess," one of them said, "I never thought humans could fight like this. We feel strong now, like nothing can stop us." Alara nodded, her face glowing in the firelight. "That is because humans are more than weapons or machines. We think, we adapt, we care for each other. That is our strength. And never forget this, courage is contagious. Once one human acts, it inspires others. That is why we can do things the Xylar cannot even imagine." The soldiers listened in silence, absorbing her words. Even in the midst of war, they could see the truth of them. Humans were resilient, clever, and brave. They could survive and even thrive in the face of danger that would crush other species. As night fell, Alara looked toward the stars, thinking about the battles yet to come. She knew the Xylar would regroup stronger and more dangerous than before, but she also knew that humans would be ready. She had seen their courage, their creativity, and their determination firsthand, and as long as they had hope, humans could face anything. Alara allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. She was only one human, but she had sparked something greater than herself. The soldiers, the civilians, and even the distant fleet, humanity as a whole, were stronger because of her actions. That realization filled her with determination. The war was far from over, but humans were rising, not just to fight, but to prove that courage, ingenuity, and heart could triumph against any enemy. And so, Princess Alara prepared for the battles ahead, knowing that every action, every choice, and every moment of bravery would shape the destiny of humanity. Alone or not, humans would never be underestimated again. The morning sun barely touched the horizon when Princess Alara was already moving. She had barely slept, but exhaustion did not slow her. The battle yesterday had been a success, but it had only been a small victory in a much larger war. Reports from the scouts confirmed her fears. The Xylar were regrouping, and their next attack would be more powerful, more coordinated, and potentially devastating. Alara examined the data from her suit's sensors, scanning for patterns in the enemy movements. She had learned much about the Xylar in the past days. Their machines were formidable but rigid. They relied on precision, on predictable responses, on systems that could be studied and anticipated. Humans, she thought, were unpredictable. Humans could improvise. Humans could think in ways no machine could predict. That would be her advantage. She gathered a small group of soldiers, veterans and newer recruits alike, and outlined a bold plan. The Xylar had constructed a massive weapon near the center of the battlefield, a structure that pulsed with energy and emitted a low, threatening hum. It was their main power source, and if it was allowed to operate, the human forces would be unable to hold their ground. Alara had decided that they could not wait for reinforcements or large-scale attacks. They had to act, and quickly. "This weapon," she began, her voice steady and confident, "is their strength, but it is also their weakness. No machine can anticipate the creativity, courage, and ingenuity of humans. We will go to it and we will disable it, not by fighting it directly but by outthinking it. By showing the Xylar that humans are not predictable, humans are not weak, and humans will not be defeated." The soldiers listened, a mixture of fear and admiration in their eyes. They knew the risk, but Alara's presence, her calm determination, inspired them. They were not just following orders. They were following a human who had proven that courage and intelligence could change the tide of war. Under the cover of darkness, Alara and her team moved. The ruins of the city stretched around them, shadows hiding dangers both seen and unseen. The distant hum of the Xylar machines vibrated through the ground, a constant reminder of the stakes. Alara led the way, analyzing every step, every sound, every shift in the shadows. The Xylar defenses were extensive. Patrols moved in precise formations, energy shields glimmered under the faint light, and sensors scanned the surroundings for movement. But Alara had studied them. She knew their patterns, their routines, and most importantly, she knew how to exploit their rigidity. She signaled her team to split into smaller units, each taking different paths to create distractions, confuse the enemy, and open a route toward the central weapon. Her team moved silently, using debris, walls, and fallen structures for cover. Alara's exosuit amplified her strength and speed, allowing her to leap over gaps, climb walls, and carry her most exhausted teammates when necessary. Every step was calculated, yet every action seemed natural, flowing with human intuition. As they approached the weapon, Alara paused to assess the security systems. Massive energy barriers pulsed around the structure, and dozens of Xylar machines patrolled the perimeter. A direct assault would be suicide. Instead, Alara formulated a plan rooted in human ingenuity. She instructed one group to create decoys using lights and sounds, luring some of the Xylar machines away. Another team would disable the outer sensors using improvised tools. And she, with a small elite unit, would infiltrate the heart of the weapon itself. The plan unfolded with tense precision. The decoys worked perfectly, drawing the attention of the patrols and causing confusion among the Xylar forces. Alara and her team slipped past the energy barriers, their movements quiet, deliberate, and unpredictable. Every human action was creative, adaptive, and unexpected. Finally, they reached the control center of the weapon. Massive panels of alien technology filled the room, lights blinking in patterns that made no immediate sense. Alara studied them carefully. She had seen humans learn new technology before, adapt to machines they did not understand, and even overcome systems designed to be impossible to break. This was no different. Using a combination of observation, intuition, and improvisation, Alara began manipulating the controls. She noticed patterns in the Xylar systems, small redundancies and vulnerabilities. She instructed her team to disable certain circuits while she rerouted energy flows, confusing the weapon's operating systems. One by one, alarms began to trigger, but not in a way that would immediately endanger them. Instead, they created a cascade of errors, forcing the weapon to shut down partially. Suddenly, A loud alarm echoed through the chamber. Xylar reinforcements had detected the intrusion. Massive machines began to move toward the control center, weapons charged and glowing. Alara's team braced for a fight, but Alara's mind raced faster than the enemy could move. She saw a sequence, a timing window, and a chance. Using her exosuit, she leapt onto a control panel, rerouting the remaining power in a calculated surge that caused the weapon to shut down entirely. Sparks flew, panels flickered, and a low hum of dying energy filled the room. The Xylar forces outside paused, confused. Their weapon, their main advantage, had been neutralized, not by brute force, but by human intelligence and courage. Alara's team took advantage of the moment, retreating carefully, avoiding direct confrontation with the bewildered enemy machines. Outside, the battlefield was changing. Without their central weapon, the Xylar forces faltered. Human soldiers seized the opportunity, pressing the attack with renewed vigor. Alara moved among them, guiding, inspiring, and coordinating. Every human action now seemed amplified by their leader's presence. They set up ambushes, redirected enemy movements, and struck where the Xylar were least prepared. Even in the chaos, Alara remained calm, observing, calculating, and adapting. She knew the Xylar would attempt to recover, but humans had already demonstrated their advantage: adaptability, creativity, and courage. One human mind could outthink an entire army when it relied on these qualities. Hours later, the battlefield fell quiet. Fire still burned, but the Xylar had retreated, their forces diminished and confused. Human soldiers gathered around Princess Alara, exhausted but triumphant. They had faced a seemingly unstoppable enemy, and through courage, intelligence, and determination, they had prevailed. Alara addressed them, her voice calm but filled with pride. Today, we did not just fight, we proved something greater. Humans are not the strongest by muscle, but we are strong because we think, we adapt, and we never give up. The Xylar may have machines, but we have something they cannot predict: human courage and intelligence. That is our greatest weapon. The soldiers cheered, their spirits soaring. Even those who had doubted themselves before now believed in their abilities. They had seen firsthand that humans, when united and determined, could accomplish the impossible. As night fell, Alara walked among the wounded, helping where she could, offering words of encouragement and quietly planning for the future. She knew the Xylar would not give up. They were relentless, intelligent, and dangerous. But she also knew that humans could continue to surprise them, continue to adapt, and continue to fight in ways no alien could anticipate. Alara allowed herself a brief moment to reflect. She had entered the war zone alone, and she had faced dangers that would terrify most people. But her actions had inspired humans to rise above fear, to think creatively, and to act bravely. She had proven that even one human, if clever and determined, could change the course of a battle, maybe even a war. The stars above seemed distant and calm, a stark contrast to the battlefield below. But Alara knew that humans, though small in the vastness of space, could shine brightly, even in the darkest of times. And she vowed that she would continue to fight, continue to lead, and continue to prove that humanity could stand against any challenge. The war was far from over, but a significant victory had been won, and in the hearts of humans, hope burned brighter than ever. One day, she thought, humanity would not just survive, they would thrive. And when that day came, no one would ever underestimate humans again. Alara stood on a ridge, looking at the battlefield, her eyes determined, her mind focused. The Xylar had learned that humans were unpredictable, clever, and courageous. And Princess Alara knew that as long as humans had hope, there was no enemy they could not face, no obstacle they could not overcome, and no weapon they could not outsmart. She turned back to her soldiers, a smile touching her lips. "Rest now," she said, "for tomorrow we fight again. But remember this, humans will never give up, humans will never be defeated, and humans will always find a way. The battlefield was quiet as dawn broke, but the silence was tense, filled with anticipation. Princess Alara stood on a ridge overlooking the remnants of the war zone. Fires still flickered in the distance, smoke rising from destroyed machines, craters marking the devastation. The Xylar had retreated temporarily, but their main forces remained intact, regrouping somewhere beyond the horizon. Alara knew this was only a pause, not the end. Her soldiers moved around her, preparing defenses, checking weapons, and tending to the wounded. Their faces were tired, yet their eyes shone with renewed determination. In the last days, they had learned what humans were capable of when they combined courage, intelligence, and unity. Under Alara's leadership, even the most inexperienced recruits had grown into skilled, confident fighters. Alara's mind raced with plans. She had studied the Xylar movements, their supply lines, and their remaining strongholds. One thing was clear: the next battle would decide the fate of the colony. If they failed, the humans there would be wiped out. If they succeeded, humanity would not only survive but gain respect across the galaxy. She called her commanders to her side. "Today," she began, her voice steady and resolute, "we face the Xylar one last time. They are strong, yes, but they are not human. They do not adapt as we do. They do not think the way we think. And that is why we will win. We will not fight them blindly. We will fight them smart, we will fight them together, and we will show them what humans are truly capable of." The commanders nodded, inspired by her words. Each had witnessed her courage firsthand. Each had seen how her actions had changed the course of the battles already fought. They trusted her, not just as a leader, but as a symbol of what humans could achieve. As the sun rose higher, Alara and her team moved toward the final confrontation. The Xylar had fortified a large area where they had concentrated their remaining forces. Massive war machines bristled with weapons, and alien soldiers patrolled the perimeter. To attack head-on would be suicide, but Alara had learned from previous battles. Humans could adapt, improvise, and act in ways the Xylar could not predict. That would be their advantage once more. She split her forces into smaller groups, each assigned to specific tasks. Some would create distractions, drawing enemy forces away from key positions. Others would sabotage supply lines, preventing reinforcements. And she, with a small elite unit, would infiltrate the heart of the Xylar base, targeting the command center. The movement was silent, careful, and deliberate. Alara led the way, her exosuit helping her leap over debris, scale walls, and move faster than most soldiers could. Her team followed her example, each member using creativity and courage to overcome obstacles. They avoided patrols, used shadows for cover, and employed clever misdirection to confuse the enemy. When they reached the central command structure, Alara paused to assess the situation. The building was heavily guarded with energy shields, automated defenses, and dozens of Xylar soldiers. A direct assault would fail. Instead, she turned to her team. "We do this the human way," she said. "We do not overpower, we outthink." Using improvised tools and her suit's sensors, Alara identified a weak point in the alien system. She guided her team through maintenance tunnels and ventilation shafts, avoiding detection. Once inside the command center, she studied the alien controls. The systems were complex but not infallible. Humans could learn, adapt, and exploit mistakes. Alara's hands moved quickly over the controls, rerouting power, creating glitches in the security systems, and sending false signals to confuse the Xylar forces. One by one, alarms triggered, but not in a way that would endanger her team. Instead, the errors caused chaos among the enemy soldiers, giving the humans a critical advantage. Outside, the main battle was raging. Alara's soldiers had executed the distractions flawlessly, drawing attention away from the infiltrators. Explosions rocked the perimeter, Xylar machines faltered, and humans pressed the attack with renewed confidence. The tide of the battle was turning. Alara's team reached the central console, the heart of the Xylar operations on the planet. She knew what had to be done. Using a combination of intuition, intelligence, and calculated risk, she initiated a sequence that would disable the Xylar's entire network on the battlefield. Sparks flew, panels flickered, and a low hum of dying energy spread through the structure. The Xylar forces outside froze, their machines powered down, weapons offline and soldiers uncertain. The humans seized the moment, pressing forward with unmatched precision. They moved like a single organism, guided by courage and quick thinking, striking where the enemy least expected. Alara's presence on the battlefield amplified the effect. She led by example, saving soldiers trapped under debris, rerouting human forces to exploit weaknesses, and taking calculated risks that inspired everyone around her. Her courage was contagious. Every human on that battlefield fought not just with weapons, but with determination, ingenuity, and heart. Hours passed, but the humans did not falter. They pushed the Xylar back, gradually reclaiming territory, disabling machines, and capturing strategic positions. The alien soldiers began to retreat, confused and demoralized by the humans' relentless adaptability. Even the strongest Xylar war machines were rendered useless by a combination of human strategy, improvisation, and courage. Finally, the battlefield grew silent. The Xylar had retreated completely, leaving the humans in control. Soldiers cheered, some falling to their knees, others hugging one another in relief. They had faced an overwhelming enemy, and through bravery, cleverness, and teamwork, they had triumphed. Alara stood on the ridge, watching the aftermath. The humans were victorious, but she knew the battle had been about more than territory or weapons. It had been about proving that humanity, though physically weaker than many alien species, was unstoppable when united by courage, intelligence, and determination. She walked among the soldiers, offering words of praise and encouragement. "Today," she said, "we have not just won a battle. We have shown that humans can face any challenge and survive. We have proven that our strength lies not only in our weapons but in our minds and hearts. Remember this and never forget it." The soldiers listened, their faces shining with pride and gratitude. They had fought alongside a human who embodied the very best of their species: courage, intelligence, and unwavering determination. They knew that humans could not be underestimated again. As the sun set, Alara allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. She had entered the war zone alone, faced dangers that would have crushed most people, and emerged victorious. But more importantly, she had inspired others to rise above fear, to think creatively, and to act bravely. Humanity had proven itself not through machines or sheer force, but through courage, adaptability, and heart. News from Earth began to arrive, messages of relief and admiration. The princess had become a symbol, not just of human strength, but of human potential. Stories of her actions spread, inspiring civilians, soldiers, and leaders alike. They saw that even one determined human could change the course of events, and that humans could achieve the impossible when they believed in themselves. Alara watched the stars that night, thinking of the battles yet to come. The Xylar were not gone forever, and other challenges awaited humanity in the vastness of space. But she also knew that humans would be ready. They had courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to fight not just for survival, but for their future. That was something no alien could match. In the quiet of the war zone, she felt a deep sense of pride and hope. Humans had faced an overwhelming enemy and prevailed. They had shown that courage, intelligence, and determination could triumph over fearsome machines and rigid tactics, and she knew that this victory was only the beginning. The next day, Princess Alara addressed her soldiers one last time before the remaining Xylar forces had fully retreated. "Look around you," she said, gesturing to the battlefield. Every scar, every destroyed machine, Every brave soldier standing here is proof of what humans can do. We are not the strongest in muscle, but we are stronger in courage, in creativity, and in heart. Never forget that. Humans can achieve anything we set our minds to. The soldiers cheered, their voices carrying across the plains, a declaration of humanity's resilience and spirit. Alara's heart swelled with pride. She had entered the war zone alone, but she had never been truly alone. Humans had stood together, fought together, and won together. As she looked toward the horizon, Alara realized something profound. Humanity's future was bright, not because of technology or sheer numbers, but because of what made them human. The courage to face danger, the intelligence to solve problems, and the heart to protect one another. Those qualities would ensure that humans would survive, thrive, and continue to rise, no matter what challenges awaited them in the galaxy. Alara smiled, a mixture of relief and determination. The Xylar had been defeated, the humans had proven themselves, and a legacy of courage and ingenuity had been established. The war zone was no longer a place of fear, but a testament to humanity's spirit. And Princess Alara knew that as long as humans held on to hope, worked together, and never gave up, there was no obstacle they could not overcome. She turned to her soldiers, her eyes bright with resolve. "Rest, recover, and prepare," she said. "The galaxy is vast, but we are humans, and humans will always rise." In the silent aftermath, under the stars and amidst the quiet battlefield, humans stood tall. One princess had shown them the way, but it was their courage, intelligence, and unity that would carry them forward. Humanity had triumphed, not because it was the strongest, but because it was human. And in the vast reaches of space, that was more than enough. The human princess entered the war zone alone,